The signal traveled across the stars like a dying scream. It moved through the cold emptiness of space, bouncing off relay stations and satellites, reaching every corner of the Galactic Union. It was a simple message, sent in every known language, repeated over and over again. Please help us, the Krath have come. We cannot survive alone. Please, anyone help us. Elder Voss stood in the communication chamber of the central dome on Veth 4. His feathers, once bright blue, had turned gray with age and now with fear. Around him, younger Pelori worked at their stations, their thin fingers moving across control panels. Their hollow bones made soft clicking sounds as they trembled. The Pelori were not built for war. They were small, delicate creatures with large eyes and soft voices. Their bodies were light, designed for a world with gentle gravity and warm winds. They had never needed to fight. The galaxy had always been peaceful enough for them to survive. Until now. Through the dome's transparent walls, Voss could see the sky. It was no longer blue. Dark shapes moved across it like a plague of insects. Krath hive ships, dozens of them, blocking out the sun. They had arrived 3 days ago without warning. The first attacks had destroyed the outer settlements within hours. A young Pelori named Lyra approached Voss. Her wings were folded tight against her back, a sign of deep fear among her people. Elder, we have sent the distress signal to 43 registered civilizations. The Galactic Union Emergency Network confirms delivery. Voss nodded slowly, and the responses. Lyra's large eyes filled with tears. None, Elder. No one has responded. Voss turned back to the window. Outside, he could see the shield barrier that protected their last city. It flickered and sparked where Krath weapons struck it. The engineers said it would hold for perhaps 5 more days. After that, there would be nothing between his people and the monsters that hungered for them. Far away, in a comfortable station orbiting a safe world, Commander Rez of the Galactic Union watched the same distress signal on his display screen. He was a tall being with gray skin and 4 arms, a member of the Torvan species. His people were administrators, diplomats, record keepers. They had held positions in the Union for thousands of years. Rez read the message again and felt something cold in his chest. The Pelori were dying, and he could do nothing. He pulled up the response log. 43 civilizations had received the call. 43 civilizations had the technology to help, and 43 civilizations had calculated the odds, measured the risks, and decided that the Pelori were not worth dying for. Rez understood their reasoning. He hated it, but he understood. The Krath were nightmares made real. They were insected creatures, each one standing twice as tall as a Torvan. Their bodies were covered in hard shells that could stop most weapons. They spit acid that could melt through metal. They felt no pain, no fear, no mercy. When they invaded a world, they did not negotiate. They did not take prisoners. They simply consumed everything and moved on. No species in the Galactic Union had ever defeated the Krath in open combat. The accepted strategy was simple: run, evacuate if possible, abandon the planet if necessary. Let the Krath take what they wanted and hope they would leave. But the Pelori could not run. Their evacuation ships had been destroyed in the first attack. 3 million of them were trapped on Veth 4, waiting to die. Rez closed his eyes. This was the nature of the galaxy. The weak perished. The strong survived. It was not fair, but it was true. His console beeped. A new message had entered the network. Rez opened his eyes and read it. Then he read it again, certain he had made a mistake. The message was short. It came from a small planet in an unremarkable solar system, a world that most species avoided because of its dangerous reputation. The message said, "Hold your position, Earth is coming." Rez felt his 4 hands go cold. Earth, the death world. He had read the reports about that place, studied the data with the same horror one might feel looking at images of a natural disaster. Earth was classified as a Category 12 death world, the highest rating possible. Its gravity was crushing. Its climate was unstable, swinging between burning heat and freezing cold. Its atmosphere was filled with a corrosive gas called oxygen, and its native life forms were monsters. Every creature on Earth was a predator or had evolved to escape predators. They had claws, fangs, venom, speed, strength. They hunted each other constantly. They survived through violence. And the dominant species, the humans, were the most terrifying of all. Reyes had seen the classified files. Humans were persistent predators. They did not chase their prey with speed. They followed it, walking steadily, never stopping, never tiring until their target collapsed from exhaustion. They could heal from wounds that would kill most species. They could survive in temperatures that would freeze a Torvon solid or cook a pylori alive. They consumed poison for pleasure, things called caffeine and alcohol and capsaicin. They were also, according to every report, completely insane. Humans formed emotional bonds with anything. They kept predators in their homes as companions. They risked their lives for strangers. They charged into danger when any sensible being would flee. They had a concept called heroism that seemed to mean deliberately choosing death for the benefit of others. The Galactic Union had made contact with Earth only 50 years ago. Since then, humans had been treated with polite distance. They were too dangerous to ignore, too unpredictable to trust, too strange to understand. And now they were coming to Veth-4. Reyes opened a channel to the Pylori colony. Elder Voss appeared on his screen, looking exhausted and afraid. "Elder Voss," Reyes said carefully, "we have received a response to your distress call. A ship from Earth is on its way." Voss blinked his large eyes. "Earth, I do not know this world." Reyes hesitated. How could he explain? How could he tell this gentle creature that the beings coming to save his people were more frightening than the Krath themselves? "They are unusual," Reyes said finally. "They come from a very harsh planet. They are not like other species in the Union. But they are coming to help us." "It appears so, yes." Voss was silent for a moment. When he spoke again, his voice was thick with emotion. "Then they are the only ones. In all the galaxy, across all the civilizations we have traded with and spoken to and called friends, they are the only ones who answered." Reyes had no response to that. On Veth-4, Elder Voss turned to look at his people. Young and old, huddled together in the dome, waiting for death. He thought about the message from Earth, from this strange world he had never heard of. "Hold your position, Earth is coming." For the first time in days, Voss felt something other than despair. He did not know what kind of beings these humans were. He did not know if they could truly fight the Krath, but they had answered when no one else would. That meant something. Outside, the Krath ships continued their assault. The shield flickered again. Time was running out. But somewhere in the vast darkness of space, help was on its way. Captain Unipark was drinking her third cup of coffee when the distress signal arrived. She sat in the command chair of the Talon, a mid-sized frigate that had seen better days. The ship was old, patched together with replacement parts and stubborn engineering. But it flew, and that was enough. The message played across her console, translated from the original Pylori language. A species she had never met was begging for help. Monsters called the Krath were killing them. No one else in the galaxy was coming. Una set down her coffee cup. She was 38 years old, with short black hair and a scar across her left eyebrow from a training accident years ago. Before becoming a captain, she had been a combat medic. She had seen death up close many times. She knew what it looked like when people lost hope. She pressed the ship's intercom. "All senior crew report to the bridge. We have a situation." Within 10 minutes, they were assembled. Lieutenant Minyu Kang arrived first, as he always did. He was the tactical officer, a thin man with sharp eyes who never seemed to sleep. He read the distress signal twice, made a small sound of interest, and immediately began pulling up data on the Krath. Dr. Hana Cho came next, still wearing her white medical coat. She was the ship's doctor and xenobiologist, responsible for keeping the crew alive and for understanding alien species. Her face was soft and kind, but her hands were steady enough to perform surgery in a shaking ship. Sergeant Taehyun Lim entered like a wall moving through a doorway. He was the largest person on the ship, all muscle and bone, with hands that could crush metal. He led the ground combat team, 12 soldiers who had followed him through every kind of hell Earth could offer. Finally, Sujin Beek slid in through the door, wiping grease from her fingers. She was the chief engineer, a woman who could fix anything with spare parts and creative cursing. She kept the Talon flying when it should have fallen apart years ago. Yuna showed them the message. "The Pelori," she said. 3 million of them trapped on a planet called Veth-4. The Krath are attacking. No one in the Galactic Union is responding to their distress call. Minyu looked up from his console. "The Krath, I've read about them. Insectoid species, hive mind structure, extremely aggressive. They've destroyed at least 15 colonies in the last century." "Can they be killed?" Taehyun asked. His voice was deep and calm. "Everything can be killed," Minyu replied. "They have hard exoskeletons, but not harder than the armor plating we use. They spit acid, but our combat suits can handle corrosive environments. Their main advantage is numbers and coordination. They move as one, controlled by a hive queen." "Kill the queen, kill the coordination," Taehyun said. Minyu nodded. "That's the theory." Hana was reading the biological data on the Pelori. Her expression grew more concerned with each line. "Captain, these people are incredibly fragile. Low-gravity homeworld, hollow bones, minimal immune systems. Earth's bacteria could kill them. A human sneeze might break their ribs." "Then we'll be careful," Yuna said. "What about treating their wounded?" "I'll need to prepare specialized equipment. Lower pressure, gentler tools, medication adjusted for their body mass." Hana paused. "I can do it, but it won't be easy." Sujin crossed her arms. "How far is Veth-4?" 18 hours at maximum FTL speed," Yuna answered. "The engines can handle it," Sujin said. "Barely. I'll need to run repairs after, but we'll get there." Yuna looked at each of her crew members. These were the people she trusted with her life. They had served together for 6 years, through asteroid mining operations, rescue missions, and one very memorable bar fight on Mars. They were not soldiers by official classification. They were not heroes by their own description. They were just people who did their jobs. "I'm not going to order anyone to come," Yuna said. "The Galactic Union isn't responding because they think this is suicide. The Krath have never been beaten. If we go, we might not come back." Silence filled the bridge. Taehyun spoke first. "Captain, with respect, I didn't join this crew to run from fights." "Same," Sujin said. "Besides, who else is going to save those bird people? The Union bureaucrats. They'd send a strongly worded letter." Minyu was still reading his tactical data. "The Krath have weaknesses. They're not used to fighting species that adapt and improvise. Their hive mind is powerful but rigid. If we can disrupt their coordination, create chaos in their ranks, we have a chance." Hana closed her medical files. "I became a doctor to save lives. It doesn't matter if those lives are human or Pelori or anything else. If there's a chance I can help, I'm going." Yuna felt something warm in her chest. Pride, maybe, or love for this strange, stubborn family she had found among the stars. "Then it's settled," she said. "Sujin, get us to maximum speed. Minyu, I want a full tactical analysis of Krath weaknesses by the time we arrive. Hana, prepare your medical bay. Taehyun, brief your team." The crew moved to their stations. The Talon's old engines hummed louder as Sujin pushed them to their limits. The ship entered faster than light travel, stars stretching into lines outside the windows. As they traveled, Minyu monitored the Galactic Union communication channels. What he heard made him laugh, though there was no humor in it. Captain, you should hear this. He played the transmissions. Alien voices, translated into Korean, discussing the human response to the Pelori distress call. They're actually going. The humans are actually going to VETH-4. It's suicide. The Krath will tear them apart. What do you expect? They're Deathworlders. They don't think like normal species. I heard humans can regenerate lost limbs. No, that's not true, but they can survive wounds that would kill us. Their bodies just keep functioning. Terrifying, absolutely terrifying. Should we warn the Pelori? Their rescuers might be worse than the Krath. Yuna listened to the chatter without expression. She had heard these kinds of comments before. When humanity first made contact with the Galactic Union, the other species had reacted with fear and suspicion. Earth was classified as a death world, a planet where life evolved under such harsh conditions that everything became dangerous. To the galaxy, humans were monsters. Persistent, durable, violent monsters who smiled while consuming poison and formed emotional bonds with creatures that could kill them. Yuna didn't see it that way. She just saw people trying to live their lives, same as anyone else. Taehyun entered the bridge, having finished briefing his squad. The team is ready, Captain, fully equipped for hostile environment combat. Good, how are they feeling? Taehyun considered the question. Eager. We've trained for situations like this our whole careers. Fighting hostile creatures to protect civilians. That's what we do. Yuna nodded. On Earth, humans had always been protectors. They guarded their families, their communities, their nations. They fought predators, natural disasters, and each other. They built walls and weapons and warning systems. Protection was written into their nature. The Pelori needed protection. The galaxy wouldn't provide it, so Earth would. 18 hours. That was how long the Pelori had to hold on. 18 hours until the Talon arrived. Yuna picked up her coffee cup and found it empty. She went to get another one. There would be no sleep tonight. In the medical bay, Hana prepared her equipment. She studied Pelori anatomy, learning the placement of their organs, the structure of their bones, the chemistry of their blood. She would be ready when they arrived. She had to be. In the engine room, Sujin whispered to the ship like it was a living thing. Come on, old girl, just a little more. We've got people to save. In the tactical center, Minyu ran simulation after simulation. He found patterns in Krath behavior, weaknesses in their formations, opportunities for chaos. His mind worked like a machine, calculating possibilities. In the crew quarters, Taehyun soldiers checked their weapons and armor. They were professionals, veterans of Earth's harshest environments. They told jokes and shared stories to pass the time. None of them talked about the possibility of death. There was no point. And on the bridge, Captain Yuna Park watched the stars blur past and thought about the Pelori. 3 million lives depending on one old ship and its crew. No pressure. She finished her coffee and reached for another cup. The Talon dropped out of faster-than-light travel and into a nightmare. Yuna stared at the view screen and felt her jaw tighten. The planet VETH-4 hung in space before them, a beautiful world of blue oceans and green continents, but the sky above it was black with ships. Krath hive vessels, dozens of them, covered the planet like a swarm of insects waiting to feed. Contact, Minyu reported. His voice was calm, professional. I'm counting 53 hostile vessels, multiple sizes. The largest appears to be the Queen's carrier. The colony, Yuna asked. Still standing. Their shield is active but weakening. I estimate they have maybe 12 hours before it fails. 12 hours. They had arrived just in time. Captain, Sujin's voice came through the intercom. We have company. The communication console lit up. An incoming transmission from a Galactic Union observation vessel, holding position at a safe distance from the combat zone. Commander Rez appeared on screen, his gray face showing what might have been concern. Human vessel, this is Commander Rez of the Galactic Union. I urge you to retreat immediately. The Krath force is overwhelming. You cannot win this engagement." Yuna looked at the alien commander for a moment. "Commander Riz, how long have you been watching the Pelori die?" Riz hesitated. "We have been observing since the attack began. Our mandate is to document and report. We are not equipped for combat." "Then maybe you should take notes," Yuna said. "Talon out." She cut the transmission before Riz could respond. "Minu, plot us a course through their formation. Fastest route to the colony shield." "Captain, they'll have weapons locked on us the moment we move." "Then we move fast. Sujin, give me everything the engines have." "Already on it, Captain." The Talon surged forward. The Krath reacted quickly, turning their nearest ships toward the incoming threat. Energy weapons fired, lighting up the darkness with green and purple beams. The Talon's hull shook as impacts registered. "Shields holding," Minu reported, returning fire. Human weapons were designed for a violent universe. The Talon's guns fired kinetic rounds, dense metal projectiles accelerated to incredible speeds. They were meant for breaking asteroids, punching through debris, surviving the chaos of space. When they hit the Krath ships, the results were dramatic. The first Krath vessel exploded. Then the second. The aliens had never faced weapons like this. Their ships were built to intimidate, to overwhelm with numbers, not to withstand focused, brutal firepower. "Keep firing," Yuna ordered. "Don't give them time to adapt." The Talon cut through the Krath formation like a knife through flesh. Behind them, alien ships burned. Ahead, more enemies waited, but they seemed confused, uncertain. This was not how prey was supposed to behave. Minutes later, the Talon broke through the blockade and entered Veth 4 atmosphere. The ride was rough, flames licking at the hull as they descended. Sujin cursed steadily over the intercom, coaxing the ship through the turbulence. They landed outside the colony's shield barrier, close enough that Yuna could see the dome through the cockpit window. It was huge, covering an entire city, filled with millions of refugees waiting for rescue. "Tihyun, you're up," Yuna said. "Get in there and make contact with the Pelori leadership. Hana, go with him. Start treating their wounded immediately." "Understood," Tihyun replied. "Squad on me." The cargo bay doors opened. Tihyun led his 12 soldiers out into the alien air, their combat suits sealed against whatever might be harmful. Hana followed, carrying a medical kit nearly as large as herself. The Pelori shield flickered as they approached. A section opened just long enough for them to pass through, then sealed behind them. Inside they found chaos. Thousands of Pelori filled the streets near the shield barrier. They were small creatures, barely reaching Tihyun's chest, with feathers of blue and gold and silver. Their large eyes watched the humans with a mixture of fear and desperate hope. Tihyun moved carefully, aware that his armored body must look terrifying to these delicate beings. He made his movements slow, kept his hands visible, tried to appear as non-threatening as a 2-meter-tall soldier could. A group of older Pelori approached, led by one with gray feathers and tired eyes, Elder Voss. "You are the humans?" Voss asked. His voice was soft, almost a whisper by human standards. "Yes, Elder, I'm Sergeant Tihyun Lim. This is Dr. Hana Cho. We're here to help." Voss stared up at them. From his perspective, the humans must have looked like giants, massive and solid and completely alien. "You came. When no one else would answer, you came." "That's what we do," Tihyun said simply. An explosion shook the ground. The shield flickered again, more violently this time. In the distance, Krath warriors were massing for another assault on the barrier. "Elder, we need to see your wounded," Hana said. "I can help them, but I need to start now." Voss nodded quickly. "This way, follow me." He led them through the streets toward a large building that served as a hospital. Along the way, Tihyun saw the extent of the disaster. Buildings damaged by attacks that had occurred before the shield went up. Pelori with broken wings and burned feathers, children crying, their high voices like birdsong. His hands tightened into fists. The Krath had done this. Monsters who attacked without warning, without reason, without mercy. Inside the hospital, Hana went to work immediately. She moved among the wounded Pelori with gentle precision, her large human hands somehow becoming soft and careful. She treated burns, set broken bones, administered medications she had prepared during the journey. The Pelori medical staff watched in amazement. They had heard that humans were violent creatures from a death world. They had expected monsters. Instead, they saw a doctor who wept quietly as she worked, who whispered words of comfort in a language they didn't understand, who treated their people with more care than they could have imagined. Outside, Taehyun positioned his squad along the shield perimeter. Through the barrier, he could see Krath warriors approaching. They were even uglier in person than the data files had suggested. Tall, segmented bodies covered in dark shells, multiple limbs ending in razor claws, heads with compound eyes and mandibles dripping acid. "Contact," one of his soldiers reported. "They're testing the shield." A Krath warrior pressed against the barrier. The shield sparked and pushed it back, but the energy drain was visible. Each attack weakened the protection a little more. "When the shield fails," Taehyun said to his team, "we hold this position. No Krath gets past us." "Understood, Sergeant." On the Talon, Yuna watched the situation develop through drone cameras. Commander Rez had opened another communication channel, unable to hide his curiosity. "Your people are inside the shield," Rez observed. "They are treating the wounded." "That's what doctors do," Yuna replied. "The female human, she is crying while she works." Yuna glanced at the footage of Hana moving among the Pelori patients. "Yes, she cares about them. That's why she's good at her job." Rez was silent for a long moment. "I do not understand humans. You come to fight impossible battles, to die for species you have never met. You show emotion while performing medical procedures. You are simultaneously the most violent and most compassionate creatures I have ever encountered." "That's humanity," Yuna said. "We contain contradictions." The Krath assault began. Hundreds of warriors charged the shield simultaneously, overwhelming it through sheer numbers. The barrier collapsed with a sound like breaking glass. For a moment, there was nothing between the Pelori city and the approaching swarm. Then Taehyun's squad opened fire. Human weapons roared in the alien air. Kinetic rifles designed to stop charging predators on Earth proved equally effective against Krath shells. The first wave of attackers fell, their bodies torn apart by bullets designed for much larger and more dangerous prey. But more came, always more. A Krath warrior reached Taehyun, its claws slashing toward his chest. He caught the attack on his armored forearm, felt the impact shake his bones, and responded with a punch that cracked the creature's exoskeleton. It fell. He shot it twice to make sure. The battle became a blur of violence. Taehyun moved through the Krath like a force of nature, his training taking over completely. Dodge, strike, fire, move. His soldiers fought beside him, covering each other, working as a unit against the endless tide. A claw found its way past his guard, punching through his shoulder armor and into flesh. Pain exploded through his body. Any other species would have fallen, would have stopped, would have died. Taehyun grabbed the Krath's limb and ripped it off. The creature screamed, a sound like metal scraping metal. Taehyun beat it to death with its own arm, then turned to face the next enemy. Behind the line, Hana heard the sounds of combat and kept working. A young Pelori child lay on the table before her, leg broken in 3 places. The child's mother stood nearby, wings trembling with terror. "It will be okay," Hana said softly. "I'm going to fix this. Your child will walk again." She set the bones with hands that did not shake, even as explosions echoed outside. The mother watched her work and began to cry. "You are not monsters," the mother whispered. "They told us humans were monsters, but you are not." Hana finished her work and looked up at the Pelori woman. "We're just people, same as you, we just want to help." Outside, the Krath began to retreat, not because they had been defeated, but because they were regrouping. The hive mind was adapting, recognizing that these new enemies required a different approach. Tihyun stood among the alien bodies, breathing hard, blood running down his arm. His soldiers checked each other for wounds, called out status reports. 3 injured, none critical. We held the line. Tihyun looked at the retreating Krath and knew this was only the beginning. The real battle was still coming. But for now, the Pelori were safe. For now, the Krath Queen had lived for centuries. Her hive mind had consumed dozens of worlds, absorbed countless species, grown fat on the fear of the galaxy. No one had ever truly challenged her swarm. No one had ever stood their ground and fought back. Until now. From her ship high above Vethfor, she observed the strange creatures defending the Pelori city. They were small compared to her warriors, soft, organic, fragile-looking, but they had killed hundreds of her children in the first assault. They had not run. They had not surrendered. This was new. This was interesting. This required her full attention. The Queen sent the signal through her hive mind. Every Krath on the planet felt her command. No more probing attacks. No more testing. The entire swarm would descend at once. 10,000 warriors against a handful of defenders. This would end now. On the ground, Tihyun watched the horizon darken with approaching Krath. His shoulder wound had been treated by Hana, sealed with medical foam and wrapped tight. It hurt constantly, but he could still fight. That was all that mattered. "Captain," he said into his communicator, "we have a problem." Yuna's voice came back immediately. "I see them. Full swarm deployment. They're committing everything. We can't hold against those numbers. Not for long." There was a pause. When Yuna spoke again, her voice was calm and certain. "Then we won't hold, we'll attack." Tihyun blinked. "Captain, I'm bringing the Talon down. We'll use the ship as a forward base. Sujin has an idea for the engines." Before Tihyun could respond, the sky split open with thunder. The Talon descended through the clouds, its battered hull catching the light of the alien sun. It landed just outside the city perimeter, engines still glowing hot. Yuna stepped out of the ship, armored and armed. Behind her, Minyu carried a tablet displaying tactical data. They joined Tihyun at the defensive line. "What's the plan?" Tihyun asked. Yuna pointed at the approaching swarm. "They're expecting us to defend, to hide behind the Pelori and wait for death. We're going to do the opposite." Minyu pulled up a display. "The Krath hive mind depends on the Queen. She controls everything, coordinates every warrior. Without her, they become individuals, disorganized, vulnerable." "So we kill the Queen," Tihyun said. "Exactly. Her ship is in orbit, but she has to maintain close range to control the ground forces effectively. That means she's exposed. A small team, moving fast and hard, could reach her carrier and plant explosives." Tihyun looked at the swarm, thousands of Krath standing between them and the Queen's ship. "How do we get through?" Yuna smiled. It was not a kind smile. "We make them open a path, Sujin." The engineer's voice came over the communicator. "Ready, Captain. This is going to be loud." The Talon's engines roared to life. Not for flight, but for something else. Sujin had rerouted the power systems, turning the ship's thrust into a weapon. Superheated air blasted outward in a cone, creating a wall of fire that reached hundreds of meters. Any Krath caught in the blast simply disappeared. Those nearby scattered, their formations broken by the unexpected attack. "Move," Yuna shouted. Tihyun grabbed 3 of his best soldiers and ran toward the chaos. They moved through the gaps in the Krath swarm, using the confusion as cover. Behind them, the rest of the squad held the line, supported by the Talon's improvised fire system. The Pelori watched from their shelters, unable to believe what they were seeing. These humans had taken their grounded ship and turned it into a fortress. They had charged into an army of monsters without hesitation. Elder Voss stood beside Minu, who had remained to coordinate the defense. "Your people," Voss said, "they are warriors." Minu shook his head. "Not really. Tihyun was a farmer before he joined the military. Yuna was a medic. We don't have a warrior class. We're just ordinary people who learned to fight because our world required it." "On my world," Voss said, "we never needed to fight. We never developed the skills or the mindset. Perhaps that was a mistake." Minu watched the tactical display, tracking Tihyun's team as they moved toward the landing zone for the assault shuttle. "It's not too late to learn. The first lesson is simple: fight dirty. Don't play fair. Don't give the enemy what they expect." He pointed to a group of Pelori who had been helping move supplies. "See those pressure tanks, the ones used for your atmospheric systems?" "Yes." "If we ruptured them near a Krath concentration, the sudden pressure change would disorient them, maybe even hurt them. Their exoskeletons aren't designed for rapid environmental shifts." Voss stared at the tanks, then at Minu. "You think like a predator." "I think like a survivor. There's a difference." Across the battlefield, Hana worked in the hospital despite the ongoing chaos. The sounds of combat never stopped. Explosions shook the building. Screams echoed from outside. But inside, she kept her hands steady and her focus sharp. A Krath warrior broke through a wall. The Pelori staff screamed and fled. Hana grabbed the nearest weapon she could find, a surgical laser designed for precision cutting. The Krath lunged at her, claws extended. She ducked under the attack, moved to the side and drove the laser into the creature's eye. It thrashed, screaming, and she held on until it stopped moving. Then she stepped over the body, picked up her medical kit, and returned to her patient. "It's okay," she told the terrified Pelori on the table. "You're safe. I'm not going anywhere." Outside the planet's atmosphere, Tihyun's team reached the assault shuttle that had been deployed from the Talon. It was a small craft, barely large enough for 4 people, designed for quick insertions into hostile territory. "Everyone in," Tihyun ordered. "We're going up." The shuttle launched, punching through the atmosphere toward the orbiting Krath carrier. The Queen's ship was massive, a living structure of organic metal and chitin. It pulsed with the energy of the hive mind, broadcasting commands to every warrior on the surface. Krath interceptors moved to block them. Tihyun took the guns while one of his soldiers piloted. He had always been a good shot. Today, he was better. Interceptors exploded. The shuttle dodged and weaved. They reached the carrier's hull and crashed through a weak point, landing in a corridor that smelled like rot and acid. "Move fast," Tihyun said. "Find the Queen, plant the charges, get out." They moved through the alien ship like ghosts of death. Krath warriors appeared and were cut down. The organic walls pulsed around them, sensing the intruders but unable to stop them. They found the Queen's chamber. She was massive, a bloated creature surrounded by neural tendrils that connected her to every member of her swarm. Her compound eyes turned toward the humans, and for the first time in her long life, she felt something she did not recognize. Fear. Tihyun planted the explosives while his team held off the Queen's guards. The Krath fought with desperate fury, but desperation was something humans understood. They had been desperate for their entire evolutionary history. They knew how to function through it. The charges were set. "Fall back," Tihyun shouted. They ran. The Queen screamed in the hive mind, ordering her warriors to stop them, to sacrifice everything. But it was too late. The explosion tore through the carrier. Fire and debris scattered into space. The Queen died in an instant of agony that echoed through every Krath on the planet below. On the surface, the swarm stopped. 10,000 warriors suddenly lost their coordination, their purpose, their unity. They stood frozen, confused, individual for the first time in their lives. Then they began to flee. Yuna watched them retreat, stumbling over each other, running in random directions. Without the hive mind, they were nothing but animals. Dangerous, yes, but no longer an army. "It's over," she said quietly. "We won." Minyu checked the sensors. Taehyun's shuttle is heading back. He's alive. His whole team is alive. Behind them, the Pelori began to emerge from their shelters. They looked at the retreating Krath, at the burning wreckage falling from the sky, at the humans who stood among the chaos. Elder Voss walked slowly toward Captain Yuna Park. His old legs trembled, but he forced himself to move. When he reached her, he stood in silence for a moment, trying to find words. "Why?" he finally asked. "Why did you come? Why did you risk everything for people you had never met?" Yuna looked at the old Pelori. She thought about the question, about all the complicated answers she could give, about duty, about morality, about the human need to protect the weak. In the end, she gave the only answer that mattered. "Because you asked for help." Voss closed his eyes. Tears ran down his feathered face. "Thank you, thank you." In the distance, the sun began to rise over HFY. The first dawn since the attack began. The first morning of a new future. The Pelori had survived. Earth's Deathworlders had answered the call. 3 months after the Battle of HFY, Commander Rhea stood before the Galactic Union Assembly. The chamber was vast, filled with representatives from hundreds of species. They sat in tiered rows, a rainbow of alien forms and faces, all focused on the presentation screen at the center of the room. Rhea cleared his throat. His 4 hands trembled slightly. What he was about to show them would change everything. "Distinguished representatives," he began, "I was present during the Krath assault on HFY. What I witnessed there forces me to recommend a complete reassessment of our policies regarding Earth and its inhabitants." He activated the footage. The assembly watched in silence as human soldiers fought through waves of Krath warriors. They saw Taehyun take a wound that would have killed any species in the chamber, then continue fighting with an alien limb as a weapon. They saw the Talon transform from a ship into a weapon of fire and destruction. They saw Hana kill a Krath with a surgical tool, then calmly return to treating patients. Gasps filled the chamber. Several representatives looked away, unable to watch. "The humans arrived with 1 ship," Rez continued. 17 crew members. They faced a Krath swarm of 10,000 warriors and 53 vessels. They won. "Impossible," someone called out. "The data must be wrong." "I verified it myself, multiple times. The humans lost 3 soldiers in the ground combat. All other crew members survived, though many were injured." Reyes paused. "The Krath lost everything. Their queen is dead. Their remaining warriors scattered across the sector, leaderless and broken." He changed the display to show biological data. Human physiology appeared on screen, compared to the galactic average. Humans evolved on a Category 12 death world. Their bodies operate at temperatures that would cause fever in most species. They can survive for days without water, weeks without food. Their bones heal. Their wounds close. Their immune systems attack foreign organisms with extreme aggression. He highlighted a brain scan. But the most dangerous thing about humans is not their bodies. It is their minds. They possess a capacity for what they call persistence. Once a human commits to a goal, they do not stop. They do not give up. They continue until they succeed or die. "This is terrifying," a delegate from a peaceful agricultural world said. "Why should we not view them as a threat?" "Because of this," Raz said. New footage appeared. Hana crying while treating Pelori children. Taehyun sitting with wounded aliens, speaking softly to them despite the language barrier. The entire crew of the Talon attending a memorial service for the Pelori who died before they arrived. Humans form emotional bonds with remarkable speed and strength. They did not come to VETH-4 for payment or territory or political advantage. They came because someone asked for help. That simple, that pure. Reaz looked around the chamber at the assembled representatives. Many of them had received the same distress call. Many of them had calculated the risks and decided to do nothing. 43 civilizations heard the Pelori cry for help. One answered, the Deathworlders, the monsters, the species we have kept at arm's length since first contact. He let that sink in before continuing. I am not suggesting that humans are safe. They are not. They are the most dangerous species in known space, but they choose what to be dangerous toward, and on VETH-4 they chose to be dangerous on behalf of the innocent. Elder Voss rose to speak. The Pelori had been given a voice in the assembly, elevated by the events on their world. His presence here was itself a consequence of human intervention. My people owe our existence to Earth, Voss said. 3 million Pelori live because 17 humans were willing to die for us. I have walked among them. I have seen their kindness and their fury. They are not monsters. They are guardians. Terrible, beautiful guardians. The assembly erupted into debate. Some called for alliance with Earth. Others demanded containment. A few suggested that humans should be recruited as a peacekeeping force, a suggestion that caused widespread horror and fascination in equal measure. The discussion would continue for months. Policies would be drafted and revised. The galaxy's relationship with humanity would evolve in ways no one could predict. But none of that mattered to the crew of the Talon. They had returned to Earth orbit for repairs and recovery. The ship looked even more battered than before, hull scarred by Krath weapons and atmospheric stress. Sujin had already begun the restoration work, muttering about stress fractures and power coupling failures. Yuna received a commendation from the Earth Defense Council. She attended the ceremony, shook the appropriate hands, said the appropriate words. Then she returned to the ship and pretended it never happened. Tihyun spent 2 weeks in the hospital. His shoulder required multiple surgeries to repair fully. When he was released, he went straight to a bar near the spaceport and drank alone until Minyu found him. "How are you feeling?" Minyu asked, sliding into the seat across from him. "I've been better." Tihyun looked at his hands, large, scarred, built for violence. "I killed a lot of them, the Krath. I didn't feel anything while I was doing it. Does that make me a monster?" Minyu considered the question. "I ran the simulations. If you hadn't done what you did, the Pelori would have been extinct by now. 3 million lives saved." "That doesn't answer my question." "Maybe there isn't a clean answer. Maybe being able to kill without hesitation and being a good person aren't mutually exclusive. Maybe that's what makes humans useful in a galaxy full of threats." Tihyun finished his drink. "I just wanted to protect people. That's all I ever wanted." "And you did. Whatever it cost you personally, you did." Across the city, Hana visited the families of the 3 soldiers who died on VETH-4. She sat with parents and spouses and children, shared their grief, told them how their loved ones had fought. She didn't try to make it better. She knew she couldn't. She just tried to be present, to witness their loss and honor it. One mother grabbed her hand and wouldn't let go. "Did he die quickly?" Hana thought about the young man she had tried to save, the wound too severe, the light leaving his eyes despite everything she did. He died protecting others. He was brave until the end. It wasn't a lie. It wasn't the whole truth either. It was the kindest thing she could say. On the Talon, Yuna stood in the cargo bay looking at the 3 empty lockers. Personal effects had been sent to families. Names had been added to memorials. But the absence remained, a silence where laughter and conversation used to be. This was the cost. This was always the cost. She heard footsteps behind her. Sujin, still covered in engine grease. "Captain, you okay?" Yuna didn't turn around. "We saved 3 million people. We lost 3 of our own, Is that a good trade? Is there such a thing as a good trade? Sujin stood beside her, looking at the empty lockers. I don't know, I'm just an engineer. I fix things. I don't do the big philosophical questions. Neither do I, but they keep coming anyway. They stood in silence for a while. Eventually, Sujin spoke again. New distress signals are coming in. Other species, watching what happened at HFY. Some of them want to know if we're real, if humans actually exist, or if the whole thing was propaganda. What do you think we should do? Sujin shrugged. Same thing we always do. Answer the call, help who we can, try not to die. Yuna almost smiled. You make it sound simple. Isn't it? Someone needs help. We can help, so we help. Everything else is just details. The ship's intercom crackled. Minyu's voice came through. Captain to the bridge, we've got a situation. Yuna and Sujin exchanged looks and headed up. The others were already assembled when they arrived. Taehyun back from the hospital. Hana, eyes still red from her visits. Minyu as alert as ever. What is it? Yuna asked. Minyu pointed to the communication console. A distress call from the Varan sector. A colony under attack by raiders. Local authorities are overwhelmed. They're broadcasting on the same frequency the Pelori used. How far? 14 hours at maximum FTL. Yuna looked around at her crew. They were tired, wounded, grieving. They had every right to refuse to let someone else handle it for once. What do you think? She asked. Taehyun cracked his knuckles. I think I could use the exercise. Hana checked her medical kit. I need to restock some supplies, but I'll be ready. Sujin patted the wall of the ship. The old girl can make one more run, probably. Minyu was already plotting the course. I'll have tactical analysis ready by the time we arrive. Yuna sat in her command chair and looked at the stars through the viewport. Somewhere out there, people were dying. People were afraid. People were asking for help. And Earth would answer. Sujin set course for the Varan sector, maximum speed. Aye, Captain. The Talon's engines hummed to life. The old ship rose from orbit, turned toward the distant stars, and jumped to faster-than-light speed. The galaxy was vast and dangerous. It was full of threats and horrors and species that preyed on the weak. But it was also full of people who needed protection, who deserved a chance to survive. And as long as there was a single human left to answer the call, no cry for help would go unanswered. That was the promise of the Deathworlders. That was the gift of Earth.